A poor mother takes her daughter to work on Christmas Eve. The billionaire walks in and changes everything. Emily wiped the damp cloth over the last table in the conference room. The clock on the wall read 9:15 at night. Her back ached. Her feet throbbed inside her worn-out sneakers, but she couldn't stop yet. She still had to clean the hallway floor, put away the cleaning supplies, and lock everything up before leaving. The night before the Christmas holiday always left a bigger mess. The company had thrown an afternoon party, and the results were scattered throughout the office building. Crumpled napkins on the floor, plastic cups left in unlikely corners, snack crumbs stuck to the chairs. On the break room counter, someone had forgotten a piece of cake inside an open box. Emily collected the cups, threw the napkins into the trash bag, and wiped the surfaces with quick, precise movements. 35 years old, blonde hair tied in a messy ponytail, tired blue eyes. She had been working there for almost 2 years, always on the night shift. It was when they paid a little more, and she needed every extra cent. Downstairs in the lobby, her daughter Lily was waiting, sitting on a bench near the Christmas tree. The girl was 5 years old, with blonde hair that fell in soft waves to her shoulders and light eyes that sparkled with the colored light of the blinking bulbs. She swung her little legs, which didn't reach the floor, and watched the tree with that typical childhood fascination. But it wasn't just the tree that held her attention. On the table nearby, there were still leftovers from the party. Cold chips piled on an aluminum tray, pieces of white bread with jam, a half-empty bottle of soda, and that piece of cake with chocolate frosting, untouched inside the box. Lily looked at the food. Then she looked up the stairs, hoping to see her mother come down. Her stomach rumbled quietly. She hadn't eaten much for lunch, just a little rice with an egg that her mother had prepared before they left home. The refrigerator at home was empty. Lily knew this because she had opened the door earlier, looking for something. There was only a bottle of water and an empty margarine tub that her mother hadn't thrown away yet. Emily came down the stairs with the cleaning cart, the sound of the wheels echoing in the silent lobby. She saw her daughter staring at the food and felt a pang in her chest. "Lily, come help me, put this away," she called, trying to distract the girl. Lily got off the bench and went to her mother, but before helping, she glanced at the table again. Her eyes shone with something between curiosity and desire. "Mommy," her voice came out low, hesitant, "can we spend Christmas here?" Emily froze. She felt her heart tighten. She let go of the cart handle and knelt in front of her daughter. "What, my love?" Lily pointed to the lit-up tree, then to the table with the food. "Ah, there's a pretty tree here. There are lights. There's food." She paused, looking at the floor. "There's nothing at my house." Emily closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She felt the tears burning, but she didn't let any fall. Not there. Not in front of her daughter. "Honey, this isn't our home," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're going to spend Christmas at our house, our own way." "But there's nothing there," Lily insisted, with that brutal honesty only children have. "The fridge is empty. I saw." Emily opened her mouth to answer, but the words wouldn't come out. What could she say? That everything would be okay? That there would be food tomorrow? She didn't even believe that herself. It was at that moment that the glass entrance door opened. The sound cut through the silence of the lobby like a blade. Emily looked up, startled. No one was supposed to be there at this hour. The building was already closed. The lights on the upper floors were off. Only the lobby was still lit because of the Christmas tree. A man walked in hurriedly. A well-tailored grey suit, a loosened tie, dark hair slightly disheveled. David, the owner of the company. Emily recognized him instantly, although she had never spoken to him directly. She was just the night shift cleaning lady. He was the man who signed the paychecks. David was walking towards the elevator, looking at his phone, when he heard the little girl's voice. "But there's nothing at my house." He stopped. He turned slowly and looked in the direction the voice came from. He saw the blonde woman, in a cleaning uniform, crouched in front of a little girl. The child had teary eyes, and the mother was holding her shoulders gently. David stood there, just watching. He had come to get a folder he had forgotten in his office. He had an important meeting the next morning, even though it was the eve of a holiday, and he needed the documents. He was just going to go up, get the folder, and leave. But now he couldn't move. Something about that scene kept him there. The tired woman trying to comfort her daughter, the little blonde girl with light eyes, talking about an empty house. The lit Christmas tree in the background, a stark contrast to the silent pain of that moment. Can we spend Christmas here? The girl's question echoed in his head. Simple, innocent, devastating. David took a deep breath. He felt something strange in his chest, a pang, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Emily stood up and took Lily's hand. "Let's finish up here so we can go home," she said, her voice more controlled now. Lily nodded sadly and went back to the bench. She picked up the crumpled notebook and colored pencils that her mother always left in her backpack to keep her busy. She started to draw, but without the same enthusiasm as before. Emily went back to the cleaning cart, trying to ignore the tightness in her chest, trying to ignore the fact that her daughter was right. There was nothing at home. No food, no tree, no presents, nothing. David watched the scene for a few more seconds. He saw the girl drawing with clumsy strokes, her tongue sticking out, trying to distract herself. He saw the mother organizing the cart with mechanical movements, her shoulders tense, the weight of the world on her back. And then he made a decision. He started walking towards them. His steps echoed on the marble floor, and Emily finally realized she wasn't alone. She looked up and saw him approaching. Her heart raced. Had he heard everything? Did he think she was an irresponsible mother? Was he going to fire her? "Working late, huh?" David said, stopping about 6 feet away. His voice was calm, with no hint of accusation. Emily was startled anyway. She dropped the cloth she was holding and wiped her hands on her uniform. "Good evening, sir," she replied quickly. "We're just finishing up. The food was already here. We didn't touch anything." She said it without thinking, as if she needed to justify herself, as if she had been caught doing something forbidden. David made a gesture with his hand, almost dismissively. "I know." He looked at Lily, who was now watching them with curiosity. Then his eyes returned to Emily. "I heard what your daughter said." Emily felt her face flush. She wanted to disappear, but David continued before she could say anything. "Tonight is a special night. Christmas Eve." He paused. "Have you two had dinner yet?" The question caught Emily off guard. She hesitated, not knowing whether to lie or tell the truth. We're going to eat at home," she said, her voice weak. David looked at Lily. The girl had stopped drawing and was now paying attention to the conversation. "What are you going to eat at home?" he asked, but not cruelly. It was genuine curiosity, maybe even concern. Lily looked at her mother. Emily gave a slight shake of her head, silently asking her daughter not to say anything more. But Lily didn't understand the signal, or she understood and decided to ignore it. "The fridge is empty," the girl said. "There's nothing there." Emily closed her eyes for a second. She wanted to grab her daughter, run out of there, and never come back. But she stood still, her eyes downcast, her hands trembling slightly. David looked at Emily. He saw the shame written on her face. He saw the exhaustion. He saw the silent struggle of someone who works late into the night to try to provide the bare minimum for her daughter. And something inside him shifted. He slowly knelt, getting down to Lily's level. The girl looked at him with those clear eyes, curious and a little scared. "How about you two have dinner with me tonight?" he asked, with a gentle smile. Lily's eyes widened. So did Emily's. "Sir, you don't have to," Emily started, but David interrupted her with a polite gesture. "I know I don't have to," he said, standing up and looking at her, "but I want to. It's Christmas Eve. No one should go hungry tonight." Emily shook her head, still in shock. "We can't accept. There's some food right here. We can just—" "That's not dinner," David said, looking at the table with the party leftovers. "Cold chips, warm soda, a forgotten cake. And it's no trouble. It's an invitation. Please." The word "please" sounded strange. A man like him, the owner of a company, asking please for two strangers to have dinner with him. Emily didn't know what to think. She didn't know if it was safe. She didn't know if she should trust him. But when she looked at Lily, she saw her daughter's eyes shining. She saw the hope on her little face, and that was enough. "Please, Mommy," Lily asked, clasping her hands together as if in prayer. Emily looked at David, then at her daughter, then back at David. He didn't seem to have any ulterior motives. He just seemed lonely, tired. Someone who, for some reason, wanted to do something good that night. Emily took a deep breath. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We accept." Lily did a little happy jump, dropping her notebook and pencils on the bench. David smiled, and this time it was a genuine smile that lit up his face in a way Emily hadn't expected. "Great," he said. "I live on the top floor of this building. We can go up right now." Emily blinked, surprised. She didn't know he lived there. She always thought the building was just for commercial use. "You can leave the cart there," David continued. "Someone will put it away tomorrow." Emily nodded, still processing everything. Lily had already grabbed her backpack and was beside her, holding her hand tightly. David walked to the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened with a soft chime. He held the door open and made an inviting gesture. "After you." Emily took Lily's hand and walked to the elevator. She stepped inside slowly, still a bit unsure. Lily hopped in, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. David entered last and pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed, and the elevator began to rise. Lily looked at the illuminated panel, watching the numbers change. 3, 4, 5, 6. "Do you live in the sky?" she asked, looking up at David. He chuckled softly. "Not exactly, but it's pretty high up." "Can you see the stars?" "You sure can. You'll see." Emily squeezed her daughter's hand, still trying to understand what was happening. 5 minutes ago, she was cleaning the building, wondering how she was going to explain to Lily that they wouldn't have a Christmas dinner. And now she was in an elevator with the owner of the company on their way to his apartment. The elevator stopped at the top floor. The doors opened, revealing a small private hall with just one door. David stepped out first and took the keys from his pocket. He unlocked the door and opened it, turning on the lights. "Welcome," he said, gesturing for them to enter. Lily went in first, her eyes wide. Emily followed, clutching her daughter's backpack tightly. And what they saw left them speechless. The penthouse was elegant but not ostentatious. Light wood floors, modern furniture in neutral tones, a minimalist decor that conveyed comfort without excess. Everything was clean, organized, almost too impeccable, as if no one really lived there. But what caught Lily's attention was the Christmas tree. It was positioned near the large glass window that took up the entire sidewall of the living room. It was tall, almost touching the ceiling, decorated with white lights that blinked softly. Gold and silver ornaments hung from the branches, reflecting the light delicately. Underneath, a few presents wrapped in shiny paper. But the most impressive thing wasn't the tree itself, it was the view. The glass windows showed the entire city. Illuminated buildings stretched as far as the eye could see, with yellow, white, and colored lights twinkling in the Christmas Eve night. In the distance, you could see the busy streets, cars passing by, people heading home, and above it all, the dark sky dotted with stars. Lily let go of her mother's hand and ran to the window. She pressed her little hands against the glass, her eyes wide with fascination. "It looks like we're in the sky," she exclaimed, her voice full of wonder. David smiled, seeing the girl's reaction. It had been a long time since anyone had marveled at that view in front of him. Over time, he had stopped paying attention. He had gotten used to it. But now, seeing it through Lily's eyes, he could remember why he had chosen this place. "It is very high up," he said, walking over to her. "You can see almost the whole city from here." "Look, Mommy," Lily called, pointing to a building in the distance with flashing colored lights. "That building has a Christmas tree too." Emily approached slowly, still a bit tense. She looked out the window and couldn't help but be impressed. She had never been in a place like this. She had never seen the city from that angle. It was beautiful, almost unreal. "It's beautiful," she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. David looked at her and saw something in Emily's face he hadn't noticed before. Without the extreme exhaustion, without the tension from the building's lobby, she looked different, younger, lighter. Her blue eyes reflected the city lights, and for the first time that night, She didn't seem to be carrying the weight of the world alone. "Make yourselves comfortable," David said, taking off his jacket and hanging it on the back of a chair. "Hey, dinner is ready. My housekeeper prepared it before she left earlier." Emily turned surprised. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It was no trouble," he interrupted gently. "She always prepares something for me on Christmas Eve. It's just that I usually eat alone. Tonight will be different." Lily finally moved away from the window and started to explore the room with curiosity. She looked at the bookshelf full of books, the coffee table with organized magazines, the huge sofa that looked more comfortable than anything she had ever sat on. "You can sit," David said, seeing her hesitation. "You can touch things too." "It's okay." Lily smiled and sat on the sofa carefully, as if she were afraid of breaking it. Emily remained standing, still holding her daughter's backpack. "Let me show you where you can wash your hands before we eat," David offered, pointing to a hallway. "The bathroom is there, first door on the left." Emily and Lily went to the bathroom. It was large, with white tiles, a lit mirror, and a marble countertop. Everything smelled of cleanliness and expensive soap. Lily washed her hands carefully, using more soap than she needed just because she liked the smell. Emily washed her hands in silence, looking at her own reflection in the mirror. She looked tired. Her blonde hair was messy, her cleaning uniform wrinkled. She tried to tidy herself up a bit, fixing her hair, adjusting the collar of her shirt. "You look pretty, Mommy," Lily said, smiling. Emily smiled back but said nothing. When they returned to the living room, David was already in the open-plan kitchen, which was integrated with the living area. He was placing serving dishes on the dining table, which was already set with plates, cutlery, and glasses. There was a white tablecloth, folded napkins, and even a few lit candles in the center. The food was arranged simply but invitingly: a roast chicken with potatoes, a fresh salad, rice, steamed vegetables, and a basket of still warm bread. Nothing extravagant, but much more than Emily could have offered her daughter that Christmas. "Please sit," David said, pulling out a chair for Lily. The girl climbed onto the chair with her mother's help and looked at the table with shining eyes. It had been a long time since she had seen so much food all at once. Emily sat next to her, still a bit uncomfortable. David sat at the other end of the table, in a silence that could have been awkward but somehow wasn't. "Help yourselves to anything," he said, picking up the platter of chicken and offering it to Lily first. The girl looked at her mother, asking for permission with her eyes. Emily nodded, and Lily accepted a piece of chicken that David placed on her plate. Then the potatoes, a little rice, some vegetables. Emily served herself in silence, taking small portions. She didn't want to seem greedy. She didn't want to seem desperate, even though she was. For the first few minutes, they ate in silence. Lily chewed slowly, savoring each bite as if it were the best thing she had ever eaten. Emily ate even more slowly, trying not to show how hungry she was. It was Lily who broke the silence, as always, with her unfiltered childhood curiosity. "Do you live here all by yourself?" she asked, looking at David with her head tilted. David finished chewing before he answered. He looked at the girl and smiled slightly. "I do. For many years. But it's so big," Lily continued, looking around. "Don't you get scared?" "Scared of what?" "Of being alone." The question was so simple, so direct, that David was speechless for a few seconds. Emily looked at her daughter with a mix of embarrassment and pride. Embarrassment for the brutal frankness, pride for the empathy. Sometimes, David admitted, surprising himself with his honesty, "but I've gotten used to it." "Don't you have a family?" Lily asked, not understanding that this could be a sensitive question. "Lily," Emily gently warned, "you don't need to ask so many questions." "It's okay," David said, looking at Emily with a reassuring gesture. Then he turned his attention back to Lily. "I don't. Not anymore." Lily absorbed the answer in silence for a few seconds, chewing on a potato. Then she said, with all the innocence in the world, "Then you're just like us. We're alone too." Emily felt her heart ache. She wanted to say they weren't alone, that they had each other, but it would be a lie to say it wasn't lonely, that it wasn't hard, that she didn't miss having someone else. David looked at Emily. She averted her gaze, pretending to focus on her food. But he had seen it. He had seen the pain there, hidden behind a mother who did everything so her daughter wouldn't notice how difficult things were. The conversation flowed slowly. Lily asked questions about the city, about what it was like to live so high up, if you could see fireworks from there. David answered with patience, sometimes even with enthusiasm, as if he were rediscovering his own apartment through her eyes. Emily spoke little, but she smiled. She smiled seeing her daughter excited. She smiled hearing David answer the questions with genuine attention, without rushing, without irritation. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was bothering someone. She didn't feel like a burden. David, for his part, felt something strange and at the same time familiar. A feeling he had forgotten, the feeling that the house was alive, that there were voices, laughter, presence. For the first time in years, he wasn't having dinner alone at a table that was too big, eating food prepared by someone who left before he even got home. When dinner was over, Lily yawned. The exhaustion was beginning to overcome the excitement. "I think it's time to go," Emily said, starting to get up. David looked at the clock. It was already past 11 at night. "Of course, I'll call a car for you," he offered. "It doesn't make sense for you to take the bus at this hour." Emily was about to refuse, but David was already on his phone. In a few minutes, the car was on its way. They walked to the apartment door. Lily held her mother's hand, her eyes half closed with sleep, but still with a smile on her face. David opened the door and turned to them. For a moment, no one said anything. There was something in the air, something different, something new. "Thank you for the company," David said, and his voice sounded sincere. "It was nice spending the evening with you." "I was going to be alone. It was a very pleasant night." Emily smiled, not that polite, distant smile of someone thanking for a favor, but a genuine smile from someone who had also felt something different that night. "We're the ones who should thank you," she said, "for everything." Lily let go of her mother's hand for a second and hugged David's leg. "I thank you for dinner," she said, her voice tired but happy. "It was the best Christmas." David felt a lump in his throat. He knelt and hugged the little girl back, carefully, like someone hugging something precious. "For me too," he said. And it was true. They said their goodbyes simply, without grand words, without promises. Just a quiet farewell, charged with something new, something that none of the three could name yet, but it was there. A bond. Delicate, fragile, but real. Emily and Lily got into the elevator. David stood at the door, watching until the doors closed. He saw Lily's smile, Emily's small wave. When the elevator went down, he returned to his apartment and closed the door. The house was silent again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It was different, lighter. David woke up early on Christmas morning. The sunlight streamed through the large windows of the penthouse, illuminating the silent living room. He got up, made coffee, and sat on the sofa with the cup in his hands, looking out the window. The city was quieter than usual. It was a holiday. The streets had less traffic, fewer cars, less rush. People were at home with their families, opening presents, preparing special lunches. David took a sip of coffee and looked at the Christmas tree. The presents were still underneath, untouched. They were gifts he had bought out of obligation, for employees, business partners, people he barely knew. Expensive and well-wrapped gifts, empty of meaning. He thought about the night before, about Lily running to the window, marveling at the view, about Emily smiling slightly, for the first time looking less tired, about the simple conversation, the girls' questions, the warmth of that impromptu dinner. And then he thought of something Lily had said. "There's nothing at my house." David finished his coffee and picked up his phone. He searched for stores open on the holiday. He found one a few blocks away, a toy store that was open until noon. He got dressed quickly and left. The streets were almost empty. He walked with his hands in his coat pockets, feeling the cool morning air. He reached the store and went inside. There were few customers, mostly last-minute parents buying forgotten gifts. David walked through the aisles, looking at the shelves, toys of all kinds, cars, games, stuffed animals, puzzles, and then he saw the dolls. There were several Big dolls, small dolls, expensive, cheap. Dolls that talked, that walked, that did 1,000 things. But David was looking for something different, something simple, something a 5-year-old girl could hug and take everywhere. He found a rag doll with braided brown hair, a blue dress, and a stitched smile on its face. Nothing sophisticated, nothing electronic, just a simple doll, the kind that seemed made to be loved. He took the doll and went to the checkout. He paid, asked for it to be wrapped in colorful paper with star designs, and left the store. He returned to the building with the present under his arm. He didn't know if Emily and Lily would be there. He didn't know if they worked on the holiday. But something inside him told him to go to try. When he reached the building, he saw the lobby door was open. He went in and looked around. The place was empty, silent. The Christmas tree was still there, the lights off now in the daylight. And then he heard a voice, "David." He turned and saw Lily running towards him. The girl was wearing a simple dress, her blonde hair loose, her clear eyes shining with joy. Emily followed behind, carrying a bag with cleaning supplies. "Hi," David said, smiling as Lily stopped in front of him, breathless from running. "You came," she said, as if it were the best surprise in the world. Emily approached, a little sheepishly. "We came to get some things we forgot yesterday," she explained. "I didn't know you'd be here." "I came looking for you," David admitted. He looked at Lily and held up the wrapped package. "I brought something for you." Lily's eyes widened. She looked at the package, then at her mother, as if asking for permission. Emily hesitated for a second, but then nodded. "You can open it," David said, holding out the gift. Lily took the package carefully, as if it were fragile. She sat on the floor right there and began to tear the paper with enthusiasm. Emily watched, her eyes shining. When Lily took the doll out of the packaging, her face lit up. "She's beautiful," she exclaimed, hugging the doll to her chest. David knelt in front of her. "I saw this doll and thought she was waiting for you," he said, with a soft smile. Lily didn't say anything. She just put the doll down for a second and threw herself into his arms, hugging him tightly. David was surprised, but he returned the hug, feeling something warm spread through his chest. Emily approached, her eyes misty. "You didn't have to," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You've already done so much." "I wanted to," David interrupted, standing up. "I really did." Emily smiled. She didn't have enough words to thank him, so she just said, "Thank you." Lily got up from the floor, holding the doll in one hand and the crumpled wrapping paper in the other. "What should I name her?" she asked, more to herself than to anyone. "Fike, you'll find a name," David said. Then he looked at Emily. "Have you had lunch yet?" Emily shook her head. "Not yet." "How about we go for a walk? There are some streets around here that are beautifully decorated for Christmas. We can walk a bit and then get something to eat." Emily looked at Lily, who was already nodding in agreement before her mother could even answer. "Okay," Emily said, smiling. "Let's go." They left the building together. The morning was clear, the sun was shining, and there was a sense of peace in the air. David walked beside Emily, while Lily went a little ahead, talking to the doll as if she were an old friend. The streets were decorated with colored lights, garlands hanging from the lampposts, and decorated trees on every corner. Lily stopped at each decoration, showing the doll, explaining everything with that childish excitement. "She's happy," Emily commented, watching her daughter ahead. "You deserve to be happy too," David said, without much thought. Emily looked at him, surprised by his frankness, but she didn't say anything. She just smiled slightly and continued walking. They passed a square where a nativity scene was set up. Lily stopped to look, pointing out each figure, asking who was who. David explained with patience, and Emily listened in silence, grateful that someone had time for her daughter. After walking for almost an hour, they found a simple diner that was open. It was nothing fancy, just a small place, with formica tables and plastic chairs. But it was warm, and it smelled of fresh coffee and home-cooked food. They went inside and sat near the window. Lily placed the doll on the chair next to her, as if she were part of the family. David ordered sandwiches, fries, and juice for everyone. Nothing expensive, nothing over the top. Just a simple lunch. While they waited, Lily told stories to the doll. Emily talked with David about small, everyday things. He asked how long she had been working as a cleaner. She told him it was almost 2 years, that before that she had worked other jobs, but this schedule paid the best. David listened attentively. He didn't judge. He didn't ask invasive questions. He just listened. The food arrived, and they ate calmly. Lily shared some fries with the doll, placing little pieces in front of it and pretending it was eating too. David laughed, and Emily did too. After lunch, David took out his phone and asked if he could take a picture. Emily hesitated, but Lily was already posing, holding the doll in her lap. David took a few pictures. Lily with the doll, Emily and Lily together. And then a waiter offered to take one of the 3 of them together. David accepted. They posed, Lily in the middle, holding the doll, Emily on one side and David on the other. The waiter took the picture, and David looked at the phone screen. It was a simple picture, but beautiful. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked like a family. He sent the picture to Emily's phone. She thanked him, putting the phone away carefully. When they left the diner, the sun was already beginning to set. David called a car to take Emily and Lily home. When the car arrived, he opened the door for them. "Thank you for everything," Emily said, before getting in. "For the gift, for the walk, for everything." "It was my pleasure," David said, and it was true. Lily waved from the car window, hugging the doll to her chest. Emily smiled with a lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. The car drove off, and David stood there, watching until it disappeared around the corner. He walked back to the building with his hands in his pockets, but with something different in his chest, something lighter, something warmer. Inside the car, Lily looked at the doll and smiled. "This was the best day ever," she said, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. Emily kissed her daughter's head and looked out the window, watching the city go by. For the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. A few days later, David received a message from Emily. She asked if he would be at the building that afternoon. He replied that he would be there to take care of some work matters. When he arrived, Emily and Lily were already waiting in the lobby. Lily had something hidden behind her back and a shy smile on her face. "Hi," David said, approaching. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Emily replied. "Lily wanted to give you something." Lily took a step forward, her cheeks flushed with shyness. She brought her hands forward and held out a small, handmade envelope. "I made this for you," she said, her voice soft. David took the envelope carefully. It was made of colored paper, with drawings of stars and hearts made with crayon. He opened it slowly. Inside was a card, also handmade, with more colored drawings, crooked stars, hearts in various colors, and a very large Christmas tree in the middle. And underneath, in still uncertain letters, it was written, "Merry Christmas, David, you are my friend." David stood still, looking at the card. He felt something tighten in his throat, something warm in his eyes. He knelt in front of Lily and looked at her with an emotional smile. "This is the best gift I've ever received," he said, and his voice came out weaker than he expected. Lily smiled, relieved. "Really?" "Really," David confirmed, holding the card as if it was something valuable. Because it was the most valuable gift he had received in years. David went back to the penthouse with the card in his hands. He closed the door behind him and stood in the entryway for a few seconds, just looking at the empty apartment. The silence was deafening. He walked to the living room and placed the card on the coffee table, right in the middle, where he could see it. He sat on the sofa and stayed there, looking at that piece of colored paper with childish drawings and crooked letters. "You are my friend." 3 simple words. 3 words that weighed more than any contract he had ever signed, any deal he had ever closed. David looked around. The penthouse was immaculate, as always. Everything in its place, everything clean. Everything organized, but empty. So empty. He got up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, illuminated by the late afternoon light. People going home, families gathered, lives happening while he was there, alone, watching from a distance. How long had it been like this? How long had he just been watching life happen without really living? David leaned his forehead against the cold glass of the window. He thought about Christmas dinner, about the table that had seemed smaller with Emily and Lily there, about the conversation that had flowed naturally, about Lily's questions, Emily's shyness, the genuine smiles he hadn't given in years. The house had felt alive that night. It had felt like a home. And now it was just an expensive, silent penthouse again. He walked to the Christmas tree. The lights were still blinking softly, reflecting off the gold and silver ornaments. It was beautiful, expensive, perfectly decorated. But it had no soul. It didn't have the sparkle that Lily had seen in it. It didn't have the magic the girl had felt when she said it felt like being in the sky. David sat in the armchair near the tree. He thought about the walk they had taken, the decorated streets, the simple diner where they had eaten sandwiches and fries. Lily talking to the doll as if she were real, Emily smiling with that rare lightness. He had had fun. For the first time in a long time, he had really had fun. No commitments, no obligations, no masks. He had been himself, and it had been enough. David closed his eyes. He remembered when Lily had asked if he lived alone. For many years, he had answered, and it was true. But until that moment, he hadn't realized how much it weighed on him. How much he had gotten used to the loneliness, how much he had built walls around himself. After a major disappointment years ago, he had decided it was safer to be alone, that it was easier not to connect with anyone, not to take risks, not to open up, not to feel. And it had worked for a while. He had dedicated himself to work. He had built a successful company. He had achieved everything he thought mattered. But what mattered now, the money, the expensive apartment, the business deals, none of that had filled the emptiness he felt at that moment. None of that had made the house feel like a home. David opened his eyes and looked at the card on the coffee table. That piece of paper made by a 5-year-old girl was worth more than anything in that apartment, because it had been made with care, because it had meaning, because it had love. He picked up his phone and opened the photo gallery. He looked at the picture they had taken at the diner. The three of them smiling, Lily in the middle, holding the doll. Emily on one side, him on the other. They looked like a family. And for the first time, David didn't feel scared of that thought. He felt something different. He felt a desire not to go back to the silence, a desire not to go back to the loneliness, a desire to have voices in the house, laughter, presence, life. He put his phone away and sat there. As the afternoon turned into night, the tree lights continued to blink. The city continued to live on below. And inside him, something had changed. Something deep. Something irreversible. David didn't know exactly what he was going to do. He didn't know how he was going to do it. But he knew one thing for sure. He didn't want to go back to how things were before. He didn't want to spend another Christmas alone. Another dinner alone. Another night in silence, watching life happen to other people. He wanted to be part of something. He wanted to matter to someone. He wanted to be the friend Lily said he was. He wanted to be more than a successful man in an empty apartment. He wanted to be someone who made a difference in other people's lives. And Emily and Lily had shown him that it was possible. David got up from the armchair with a new determination in his chest. He looked out the window one more time, but this time he didn't just see the city below, he saw possibilities. He saw a different future. He saw hope. 2 days after the card, David was at the supermarket. It wasn't the kind of place he frequented much. He usually ordered delivery or his housekeeper did the shopping for him. But that morning, he had woken up with a clear purpose. He pushed the cart through the aisles, choosing items carefully. Rice, beans, whole milk. Fresh fruit from the produce section. Red apples, bananas, oranges, eggs. Coffee, sliced bread, butter, filled cookies, boxed juice, breakfast cereals, jam, cheese, ham, pasta, tomato sauce. A few things for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Nothing extravagant, but all essential. At the checkout, the cashier put everything in a wicker basket he had picked up near the entrance. He paid, took the heavy basket, and went to his car. He had Emily's address. It was in the company records, among the employee data. He hesitated for a moment before putting the address into the GPS. Was he being intrusive? Would she find it strange? But then he remembered Lily's words. There's nothing at my house. He remembered the empty refrigerator. He remembered Emily working late into the night, always tired, doing her best to provide the minimum for her daughter. He started the car and followed the GPS. The drive took about 20 minutes. David left the downtown area, passed through middle-class neighborhoods, and gradually reached simpler areas. The houses got smaller, the streets narrower, the cars older. The address led to a neighborhood far from the center. Uneven cobblestone streets, small houses packed together, little traffic. Some children were playing on the sidewalk. A stray dog slept under a tree, clothes dried on makeshift clotheslines. David parked in front of a one-story house with peeling paint. It had a small front yard, more weeds than flowers, with a low, rusty wire fence. The front door was made of worn wood, its green paint faded by the sun. He turned off the car and sat there for a few seconds, just observing. This was Emily's reality. This was the place she returned to every night after cleaning modern office buildings. He took the basket and got out of the car. He walked to the door, feeling the curious eyes of some neighbors on him. He rang the doorbell. He heard footsteps on the other side, and then the door opened. Emily appeared, wearing a simple t-shirt and sweatpants with a small hole in the knee. Her blonde hair was tied in a messy bun. She had a tired expression, but when she saw who it was, her eyes widened. "David," she said, completely surprised. "What are you... How did you..." She looked at the heavy basket he was holding, then behind him at the car. "Sorry to show up unannounced," he said quickly. "I brought some things. I thought it might help." He lifted the basket a little higher. Emily looked at it, saw the groceries, the fruit, and her eyes began to shine with restrained tears. "You didn't have to," she said, but her voice came out weak, emotional. "I know, but I wanted to." Emily stood there for a few more seconds. Then she opened the door completely and gestured for him to come in. "Please, come in." David entered, and the contrast with his own home was immediate. It was small, very small. The door opened directly into the living room, which couldn't have been more than 100 square feet. An old sofa with a floral blanket covering the tears in the upholstery, a coffee table with scratches and stains, an old television on a makeshift stand made of wooden crates. The living room connected directly to a tiny kitchen, a small sink, a 2-burner stove, an old and noisy refrigerator, a cabinet with misaligned doors, a scratched wooden table with 3 mismatched chairs. There were 2 doors, one to the bedroom, another to the bathroom. That was it. But despite the obvious poverty, everything was clean, tidy. The floor was swept. There were no dirty dishes in the sink. Emily maintained this place with dignity, despite everything. And there was life there. Lily's drawings taped to the refrigerator, the doll he had given her sitting on the sofa, an open coloring book on the coffee table, colored pencils scattered about. There was love there, even with so little. "Lily," Emily called. "Come see who's here." Lily came running from the bedroom, barefoot in a faded floral dress. When she saw David, her face lit up. "David!" she shouted, running to him with open arms. David quickly placed the basket on the table and knelt to receive the girl's hug. She threw herself at him with that childish intensity. "Hi, little one," he said, smiling. "I brought some things for you." Lily let go and went to the table, standing on her tiptoes to see what was inside. Her eyes grew wider and wider. "Mommy, look, there are bananas, and cookies, and juice." Emily began to take the items out of the basket, one by one, her hands trembling slightly. She placed each thing on the table carefully. Rice, beans, milk, fruit. "Eggs, coffee, this is too much," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "It helps so much, so much." "Thank you." David just nodded. He didn't want her to feel ashamed. Lily had already found the package of filled cookies and was holding it with both hands, looking at her mother with hopeful eyes. "So you can open it," Emily said, smiling despite the tears in her eyes. Lily tore open the package with enthusiasm and bit into a cookie, closing her eyes in pleasure. It had probably been a while since she had eaten filled cookies. David and Emily exchanged a look. She smiled gratefully, but there was also shame there. "Would you like some coffee?" Emily offered. "I just made it." "I'd love some," David said. Emily got 2 mismatched cups and poured the coffee. "Shall we go outside?" she suggested, pointing to the back door. They went out to the porch. It was a tiny space, more of a concrete step than a porch. 2 white plastic chairs, already yellowed with age, and a view of the side street. Nothing compared to the view from David's penthouse, but there was something cozy about it. They sat side by side. Lily had stayed inside, sitting on the living room floor, carefully eating cookies and playing with the doll. They sat in silence for a few seconds, drinking their coffee. David watched Lily through the open door. The girl was talking to the doll, creating stories, giving different voices, laughing to herself. "She seems happy," David commented. "She is," Emily said with a sad smile. "Despite everything, despite having nothing, she still manages to be happy." David looked at her. He saw the tiredness on her face. He saw the dark circles under her eyes. He saw the calloused hands from so much work. He saw a woman who was at her limit, but who kept fighting. "Can I ask about her father?" he said, gently. Emily looked down at the coffee cup in her hands. She took a deep breath, as if preparing to tell a story she had told before, but that never got easier. "It was a brief relationship," she began, her voice low but steady. "We met at a bar. I had just moved to the city. I didn't know anyone. He was charming, funny, fun. He made me feel special." She took a sip of coffee before continuing. "We went out a few times. Nothing too serious. At least that's what I thought. But then I started to get attached. I thought it was something real, that he felt the same way I did." David listened in silence, without interrupting. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I was younger, more naive. I had no support system, but I was also hopeful, you know. I thought we could make it work, that he would want to build a family with me." Emily paused, her eyes distant. "I told him one night. We met at a coffee shop. I was nervous, but also excited. I thought he would be on board with facing it together." She shook her head. He got quiet, very quiet. His face turned pale. He didn't say anything for what felt like an eternity. Then he said he needed to think, that it was a lot at once, that he needed to process it. David felt his stomach tighten. I said it was okay, that I understood, that we could talk the next day, calmly. Emily looked at David, and there was an old sadness in her eyes. "The next day, he didn't answer my calls. I sent messages. Nothing. I waited a day, 2 days, nothing. I went to his apartment. The landlady said he had moved out, took everything, paid what he owed and left without a forwarding address. She said it without acute pain, just with the truth of someone who had accepted it a long time ago. He disappeared," she completed. "Never showed up again. Not to know if it was a boy or a girl, not to see if she was born healthy, nothing." David felt anger, deep anger towards a man he had never met. Anger at someone who had abandoned a pregnant woman and an unborn child. "I'm sorry," he said, and he was sincere. Emily shrugged. "I was too, for a long time. I cried a lot. I was angry. I was scared. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I had no choice, you know. Either I got up and made it happen, or I gave up, and I couldn't give up. I had a life depending on me." She looked inside the house at Lily playing on the floor. "Now I just feel sorry for him, because he missed the chance to know Lily, and she's amazing. He missed out on that." David looked at the girl again. Emily was right. Lily was amazing, full of life, curiosity, and love to give. "You've done an incredible job with her," David said. "Alone, without help. You've raised a happy, polite, loving child. That's no small feat." Emily smiled, Emma, but it was a tired smile. "I try. I do what I can. But it's not always enough." "It is enough," David said firmly. "She's happy. She's loved. She knows her mother does everything for her. That's what matters." Emily looked at him with shining eyes. No one had ever said that to her before. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saying that." They sat there for a few more minutes, finishing their coffee in silence. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence of understanding, of respect. Afterward, David looked up at the clear sky and suggested, "How about we go for a walk? It's a beautiful day." Emily hesitated. "I don't know. I have to put things away." "Leave that for later," he insisted. "Just a walk. I saw a park when I was coming here. It looks nice. It has a playground." Emily looked inside the house, at Lily playing on the floor. "Okay," she relented. "Let's go." They went inside the house. Emily quickly put away the groceries that needed refrigeration. She put on a worn-out pair of sneakers and tied her hair in a ponytail. "Lily, let's go for a walk in the park." The girl jumped up. "Can I bring my doll?" "You can." The three of them left. They decided to walk. The park was just a few blocks away. They walked along the uneven sidewalk. Lily went ahead, jumping over the cracks in the cement, talking to her doll, pointing at things she saw. Emily and David followed behind, in a comfortable silence. They arrived at the park. It was simple, poorly maintained. It had a few peeling wooden benches, an area with rusty playground equipment, a slide, 2 swings, a crooked seesaw. But there were large trees that provided shade, and some children playing. Lily ran to the playground area. She climbed the slide, went on the swing, played on the seesaw with another boy. David and Emily sat on a bench in the shade, watching. "She likes being with other children," Emily commented. "She doesn't get much chance to." "Why not?" David asked. Emily was quiet for a moment. "She's not in school." David turned to her. "Why not?" Emily sighed. "We can't afford it." "What do you mean?" Emily looked at him. There was shame and resignation on her face. "What I earn barely pays the rent, David. It barely pays for food, basic bills. School has enrollment fees, supplies, uniforms, transportation. We just can't afford it." David felt his chest tighten. Lily should be in school, learning, playing, making friends. "What about public school?" he asked. "There's a huge waiting list," Emily explained. "I put her name down months ago. They haven't called yet." David looked at Lily. She was on the slide, smiling. She was smart, curious, full of potential. And she was out of school for lack of money. At that moment, Lily came running up to them, breathless. "I want to go to school," she said. Emily looked down. David saw the pain on her face. "Soon, my love," Emily said, trying to sound confident. "But when?" Lily insisted. "That girl over there said she goes to school." Emily had no answer. Lily waited for a few seconds, but when she saw that her mother wasn't going to respond, she shrugged and went back to play. David remained silent. He watched Lily running, playing, laughing. And then he looked at Emily, who had her eyes fixed on her daughter, with a look of helplessness on her face. "Why isn't she enrolled?" he asked again, more gently. Emily turned to him. "I already told you, we can't afford it. I don't have the money for it." "How much does it cost?" Emily shook her head. "David, I'm not going to accept anything else from you. You've already done too much. I'm not offering. I just want to know how much it costs." Emily hesitated. Then she named a figure. It was expensive for her. But for David, it was less than he spent on a business dinner. He said nothing. He just stored that information away. Emily seemed to realize what he was thinking. "No," she said firmly. "You've already done so much. I can't accept any more." "I didn't say anything," David replied. "But you're thinking it," Emily retorted. "And I'm saying no." David didn't insist. But he didn't dismiss the idea either. They stayed there for another hour. Lily played until she was tired. When she started to yawn, Emily said it was time to go back. They walked back to the house. David walked them to the door. "Thank you for today," Emily said. "For the food, for the walk, for everything." "It was my pleasure," David replied. Lily hugged his leg. "Oh, see you later, David." "See you later, little one." He went back to his car. But before starting the ignition, he sat there for a few minutes, thinking. Emily was alone. Lily was out of school. They were living on the edge, day after day. And he had the means to change that. David started the car, but he didn't go straight home. He went to the office. He had something he needed to take care of. David returned to the penthouse in the late afternoon. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink. He parked the car in the garage, took the elevator up, and entered the silent apartment. He closed the door behind him and stood in the entryway for a few seconds. The silence was absolute, oppressive. He walked to the living room and sank onto the sofa. He looked around, everything immaculate, everything expensive, everything empty. He picked up his phone and opened the photo gallery. He looked at the picture they had taken at the diner. Lily in the middle, holding the doll, smiling broadly. Emily on one side, him on the other, everyone looking happy. He put his phone away and got up. He walked to the window. The city stretched out below, illuminated by the lights that were beginning to turn on. Millions of people living their lives, families having dinner together, children doing homework, parents helping their kids, and Lily was out of school. David clenched his fists. The image of the girl saying, "I want to go to school," wouldn't leave his mind. The look of helplessness on Emily's face, the shame, the frustration. He had the means to change that. He had the means to make a real difference in their lives. But Emily had said no. She had made it clear that she wouldn't accept any more help. David paced the living room, restless. He ran a hand through his hair. He looked at the Christmas tree that was still up. The lights blinked softly, but there was no more magic there. Not like when Lily had seen it for the first time. He thought of the small, humble house where they lived. The drawings taped to the refrigerator. The doll sitting on the old sofa. Emily working late into the night just to pay the rent. He thought about how hard their life was, how unfair it was, and he thought about how he had everything and still felt empty. The night fell completely. David continued to pace the room, unable to stay still. He turned on the television but turned it off again shortly after. He tried to read a book but couldn't concentrate. He prepared a simple dinner but barely touched his food. His mind wouldn't stop. Lily is going to school. The phrase echoed in his mind like a mantra, like a certainty he hadn't yet verbalized, but that was already taking shape. He couldn't just ignore it. He couldn't go back to his old life, to the empty routine, knowing he had the means to help and did nothing. Emily and Lily had changed something inside him. They had shown him that there was more to life than work and money. They had shown him what really mattered. Connection, love, presence. David looked at the clock. It was past midnight. He should be sleeping, but he knew he wouldn't be able to, not with all these thoughts swirling in his head. He walked to his office and turned on the computer. He started researching private schools in the area where Emily lived. He compared prices, facilities, reputations. He wrote down names, addresses, phone numbers. He made spreadsheets. He calculated annual costs. Enrollment, tuition, school supplies, uniforms, transportation, meals, everything. These were amounts that made no difference to his budget. But for Emily, they represented the impossibility of giving her daughter what she deserved. David leaned back in his chair and looked at the numbers on the screen. It was so simple, so easy to solve. All he had to do was decide. And he had already decided. Emily would refuse. He knew that. She would say she couldn't accept it, that it was too much, that she had her pride, but he wasn't going to give up. Not this time, because it wasn't about Emily. It was about Lily. It was about a 5-year-old child who deserved to have the same opportunities as any other child. David turned off the computer and went back to the living room. He looked out the window one more time. The city was sleeping below, but he was wide awake, more awake than he had been in years. For the first time in a long time, he had a purpose that went beyond business and profits. He had something that really mattered. He sat on the sofa and picked up the card Lily had made for him. It was still on the coffee table where he had left it. He looked at the colorful drawings, the crooked stars, the hearts. "You are my friend." David smiled. Yes, he was their friend, and friends helped each other. Friends made a difference in each other's lives. He carefully put the card away and finally went to his room. He lay in bed but stared at the ceiling for a long time. His mind was already planning the next day, what he would say, how he would say it, how he would convince Emily. Because he was going to convince her. He had no doubt about that. Lily was going to school, and he was going to make it happen. David woke up early. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but he was already up, showering, getting dressed. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a simple shirt, nothing too formal. He wanted to seem approachable, not intimidating. He left the house before 7 in the morning. He stopped at a bakery he knew and bought fresh, still warm cheese bread. He also bought fresh orange juice and some fruit. He drove to Emily's house with his heart racing. He was nervous, anxious, but also determined. He parked in front of the house and sat there for a few seconds, taking a deep breath. He grabbed the bag with the cheese bread and drinks and got out of the car. It was almost 8 in the morning. Emily was probably awake. Lily too. He walked to the door and rang the doorbell. He heard noise from the other side. Footsteps. The door opened. Emily appeared, still in her pajamas, with her hair down and messy. She widened her eyes when she saw him. "David, again?" she said, surprised and confused. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "Sorry to show up so early. I brought breakfast." He held up the bag. Emily looked at it, then at David, not knowing what to say. She began. "Please," David interrupted. "Just breakfast. We need to talk." Emily hesitated, but then she opened the door. "Come in." David entered. The house was exactly as he remembered it, small, simple, but clean and organized. Lily came running from the bedroom, also still in her pajamas, with her blonde hair all messy. "David," she shouted, running to him. He knelt and picked her up. "Good morning, little one. I brought warm cheese bread." "I love cheese bread," Lily said, her eyes shining. Emily took the bag and brought it to the kitchen. She put the bread on a platter and poured the juice into glasses. They sat at the table, David, Emily, and Lily. It was a simple breakfast. Lily ate with enthusiasm, talking about a drawing she had made the day before. Emily ate in silence, watching David with a curious and slightly suspicious expression. She knew he hadn't come just for breakfast. When they finished, Lily excused herself and went to play in the living room with her doll. Emily started to clear the plates, but David gently held her arm. "Leave that. I need to talk to you." Emily sat down again, her hands clasped on the table. "About what?" David took a deep breath. This was it. "Lily is going to school." Emily blinked. "What?" "Lily is going to school," he repeated, looking directly into her eyes. "I'm going to take care of it." Emily immediately shook her head. "David, no, we've already talked about this. I can't accept it." "Yes, you can." "I can't," she insisted, her voice getting firmer. "You've already done too much. The dinner, the doll, the food. I can't accept anymore." "Why not?" Emily opened her mouth but closed it again. She searched for the words. Because it's not right. Because I need to be able to do this myself. Because I can't depend on you for everything." "You're not depending on me," David said calmly. "I'm offering help. It's different." "It's not different," Emily retorted. "It's charity." "It's not charity," David said, his voice firmer now. "It's gratitude." Emily frowned. "Gratitude?" David nodded. He looked into the living room, where Lily was playing and humming softly. "You and Lily changed my life," he said, turning back to Emily. "I was empty, alone, going through life without really living. And you two showed me what really matters." Emily listened in silence. "That Christmas dinner," David continued, "was the best night I'd had in years. You brought life into my home. You brought joy. You brought meaning." He paused. "That's priceless. And I want to give back, not because I feel sorry for you, not because I think you can't do it alone, but because I want to, because you deserve it, because Lily deserves to have the same chances as any other child." Emily's eyes were misty. "David, this isn't charity," he repeated, holding her hand on the table. "It's gratitude. It's friendship. It's doing what's right." Emily wiped away a tear that ran down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," David pleaded. "Say you'll let me do this, for Lily." Emily looked into the living room. Lily was sitting on the floor, combing the doll's hair with her fingers, singing a made-up song. She thought about everything she had been through, all the sleepless nights worrying about money, all the times she had to say no to her daughter, all the weight she carried alone, and she thought that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to accept help. "Okay," she said softly, almost in a whisper. David smiled. "Okay." Emily nodded, the tears falling freely now. "Okay, I accept, for Lily." David squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "I'm the one who should be thanking you," Emily said, her voice breaking. "You don't know what this means." "I do," David said. "It means a future, it means possibility, it means hope." At that moment, Lily appeared at the kitchen door, holding her doll. "Why is Mommy crying?" she asked, worried. Emily quickly wiped her tears and smiled. "I'm crying because I'm happy, my love." "Why?" David turned to her. Because you're going to school, little one." Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," David confirmed. "You'll get to learn to read, to write, to do math. You'll make friends, you'll get to play every day." Lily dropped the doll on the floor and ran to David. He stood up and picked her up. She hugged him with all the strength in her skinny little arms. "Thank you so much," she said, squeezing him tight, her little voice choked with emotion. David felt his heart tighten. He felt his eyes burn. He hugged the little girl back, carefully, tenderly. "I love you too," he said softly, and he realized it was true. He loved this little girl. He loved this woman who fought every day. He loved this small family that had come into his life unexpectedly and changed everything. Emily stood up and joined the hug. The three of them stood there, embraced in the small, simple kitchen, crying and smiling at the same time. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. David had made a decision in the middle of the night. And now, with Lily in his arms and Emily by his side, he knew it had been the right decision, the best decision he had made in a long time, because it wasn't about money, it wasn't about charity, it wasn't about ego, it was about love, it was about making a difference, it was about being present in the lives of people who mattered, and Emily and Lily mattered. They mattered a lot. When they finally let go, everyone was smiling. Lily asked when she would start school. David said he would sort everything out quickly. Emily thanked him again, without words, just with her eyes. David left with his heart lighter than it had been in years. He got into his car and sat there for a few minutes, just breathing, feeling. He looked out the window and saw Lily waving at him, with the doll under her arm and a huge smile on her face. He waved back, and he knew, without a doubt, that this was just the beginning of something bigger, something true, something that would change all of their lives forever. David started the car and drove off. He had a lot to do. A school to visit, enrollment to complete, supplies to buy. But for the first time in a long time, he was excited about the work ahead, because it wasn't work. It was a mission. It was a purpose. It was love in action. In the following weeks, David kept his promise. He visited 3 different schools in the area where Emily lived. He talked to principals, saw the facilities, and analyzed the educational approach of each one. He wanted to make sure he was choosing the best place for Lily. He decided on a small, welcoming school with caring teachers and a colorful playground that he knew Lily would love. It wasn't the most expensive, but it had the best atmosphere. It seemed like a place where a child could be happy. He completed the enrollment. He paid the entire year's tuition in advance. He bought all the school supplies, notebooks, pencils, colored pencils, markers, glue, scissors, everything on the list. He bought 3 complete uniforms, new sneakers, and a backpack with a flower print that he thought Lily would like. When he brought everything to Emily's house, their reaction was exactly what he expected. Emily cried. Lily jumped for joy. The girl tried on the uniform right away, twirling around the small living room, hugging the backpack as if it were a treasure. She picked up the new notebooks, smelled the clean pages, and reverently ran her hand over the colorful covers. "When do I start?" she asked, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Monday," David replied, smiling. Lily counted on her fingers how many days were left. 3. Just 3 days. On Sunday night, she could barely sleep from so much excitement. On Monday morning, David stopped by their house very early. Emily had dressed Lily with great care, a pristine uniform, her blonde hair in 2 neat braids, the backpack on her shoulders. The girl was visibly nervous, but also excited. "Are you ready?" David asked. Lily nodded, holding tightly to her mother's hand. The 3 of them went together. David drove on with Emily in the passenger seat and Lily in the back, chattering non-stop about what she thought would happen at school. When they arrived, other children were entering, accompanied by their parents. Lily looked at everything with wide eyes: the colorful gate, the garden with flowers, the children in uniforms just like hers. Her teacher greeted Lily at the classroom door. She was a young, friendly woman who knelt to the girls' level and introduced herself with a warm smile. "You must be Lily. I was waiting for you. Come, I'll show you to your desk." Lily looked back at her mother and David. Emily nodded encouragingly. David gave her a thumbs up. Lily took a deep breath and went inside. Emily and David stood there for a few seconds, looking at the door where the girl had disappeared. "She'll be fine," David said softly. "I know," Emily replied, but her voice was choked with emotion. "It's just that I never thought this day would come." David looked at her. He saw the silent tears streaming down her face. "It's here," he said simply. Emily wiped her tears and smiled. "Thank you, again, always." They went back to the car. David drove Emily home, but before she got out, he hesitated. "Can I say something?" Emily looked at him. "Of course." David chose his words carefully. "You still work as a cleaner at the building, right?" Emily nodded. "Yes. Why?" "I have an open position at the company." "A receptionist at the main headquarters." Emily was quiet, just looking at him. "It's a position with fixed hours," David continued. "From 9 to 6. No night shifts. A better salary than what you're earning now. Health insurance, meal vouchers, and there's room for growth, training, promotions, things like that." Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You'd be great at it," David said. "You're organized, responsible, polite, and you'd be able to pick Lily up from school every day at the right time. You'd have weekends off. You'd have a more normal life." Emily finally found her voice. "David, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept." She shook her head, incredulous. "You've already done so much." "This is too much." "It's not too much. It's an opportunity you deserve." Emily looked down at her hands in her lap, hands calloused from scrubbing floors, hands chapped from cleaning products. She thought about waking up at a decent hour every day, about not working at night, about having weekends with her daughter, about having health insurance if Lily got sick, about having the possibility to grow, to improve. She thought about everything that meant, and then she looked at David, her eyes full of tears. "I accept," David smiled. "Great, you start next week. I'll have someone from HR contact you to sort out the details." Emily couldn't hold it in any longer. She cried right there, in the car seat, her hands covering her face. They weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude for a new beginning she never thought was possible. David said nothing. He just waited, respecting that moment. When Emily finally calmed down, she looked at him. "Why are you doing all this?" David thought about the answer. He thought about all the reasons, and then he told the simplest truth: "Because you matter to me." The weeks turned into months. Lily adapted to school quickly. She made friends. She learned the letters. She started to put syllables together. She brought home drawings and assignments that Emily proudly displayed on the refrigerator. Emily started as a receptionist at the company. She was nervous and insecure at first, but she soon got the hang of it. She was polite to everyone, efficient, always punctual. The other employees liked her. She finally had a normal routine. And David became a part of their lives in a natural way. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It just happened. They started having lunch together on weekends, sometimes at Emily's house, sometimes at a simple restaurant that Lily liked. They talked about the week, about what Lily had learned in school, about the small things of everyday life. David would call to see how their days had been. Emily would send pictures of Lily in her uniform, of drawings she had made, of small achievements. Lily told everyone that David was her friend. She brought him little notes she wrote. She asked him to come to her school presentations. And David went. He always went. He found himself buying movie tickets to see children's films. He found himself at the park pushing Lily on the swing. He found himself helping with homework, teaching the girl how to add. His life, which had previously been just work and loneliness, now had laughter. It had simple conversations. It had presence. It had meaning. It was a rainy winter afternoon. The sky was grey, and the rain was beating hard against the windows of David's office. Emily had come up to drop off some documents. Lily was at school, so she had taken the opportunity to get some things done after her shift. "You can leave them on the desk," David said, looking at his computer screen. Emily placed the papers down and was about to leave, but then the rain intensified. A clap of thunder echoed outside. "You should probably wait for the rain to let up a bit," David suggested. "It's coming down really hard." Emily agreed and sat in a chair in front of his desk. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the sound of the rain. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said suddenly. David looked away from the computer screen. "Of course. Why were you alone? A man like you, successful, smart, kind. Why did you live in that huge apartment all by yourself?" David leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a moment. It wasn't a question people usually asked, and he didn't usually answer. But this was Emily, and she deserved the truth. "I got used to being alone after a major disappointment," he began, his voice low. "I was in a relationship many years ago. I thought it was forever, that we were going to build a life together." He looked out the window, watching the rain fall. "But she cheated on me, with someone close to me, a business partner. I found out by accident, and it hurt a lot, a lot." Emily listened in silence. "After that, I closed off my heart," David continued. "I decided it was safer to be alone, that it wasn't worth opening up, taking risks, so I dedicated myself to work, only to work. I built the company, made money, bought the apartment, but it was all empty." He finally looked at Emily. "I closed off my heart for years. I thought it was for the best, that I didn't need anyone." He paused. "But you two opened a door I didn't even know still existed." Emily felt her eyes well up. "You showed me that it's still possible to trust," David said. "That it's still possible to connect with people. That it's still possible to have a family, even if it's not conventional." He smiled. "You saved me. In a way, you saved me from the loneliness I had chosen for myself." Emily couldn't hold back her tears. She got up and went to the other side of the desk. David got up too, and then, naturally, he took her hand. He held it gently, with respect, with gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly, "for letting me be a part of your lives." Emily squeezed his hand back. "We're the ones who should be thanking you, for everything, for every single thing, for showing up that Christmas night and changing our lives completely." They stood there, holding hands, as the rain continued outside. It wasn't necessarily a romantic moment. It was something deeper. It was connection. It was family. It was a choice. To choose to be present. To choose to care. To choose to make a difference. The rain eventually passed. Emily needed to pick Lily up from school. She said goodbye and left. David was alone in the office, but he didn't feel alone. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He looked out the window. The sun was beginning to peek through the clouds. A rainbow was forming in the sky, and David smiled because he had a family now. Not by blood, not conventional, but real. As real as the rainbow outside. As real as the love that had grown in his heart. Silently, without him noticing. Love for a brave woman who fought every day. Love for a little girl who had the purest smile he had ever seen. Love for a life that finally had meaning. David turned off his computer, grabbed his keys, and left the office. He had a lunch to plan for the weekend. Lily had asked for pizza, and he never denied that girl anything because she was his now, they both were. And he was never going to let them go. A year had passed. It was Christmas Eve again. But everything was different now. David parked his car in front of Emily's house. It was no longer that small, peeling house. With her new job, Emily had been able to rent a better place, still simple, but with 2 bedrooms, a small backyard, and a real kitchen. He got out of the car carrying bags with the Christmas dinner. He rang the doorbell. The door opened immediately. "David!" Lily shouted, throwing herself at him. He almost dropped the bags, but managed to hold on to everything and hug her back. The girl had grown. She was taller, smarter, more confident, but her smile was the same. "Hi, little one. I brought dinner." "I'll help," she said, taking one of the bags. Emily appeared at the door, smiling. Her blonde hair was down. She wore a simple dress. She was different, lighter. Her eyes no longer had that deep exhaustion from before. "Come in. Everything's almost ready," she said. David entered. The house smelled of spices. There was a small Christmas tree in the corner of the living room, decorated with ornaments Lily had made in school. Drawings taped to the walls, soft music playing. There was life here, warmth, home. They prepared the dinner together. David helped Emily in the kitchen while Lily carefully set the table. When everything was ready, they sat down. It wasn't a sophisticated dinner. It was simple. Roast chicken, rice, salad, stuffing, and a dessert Emily had made, but it was perfect. "Can I say something?" Lily said, standing next to her chair. "Of course, my love," Emily replied. Lily looked at her mother, then at David. "I wanted to say thank you. This has been the best year of my life." Her voice was serious, solemn. "I learned to read, I made friends. Mommy doesn't work at night anymore, and you're always with us," she said, looking at David. "I'm very happy." Emily wiped away a discreet tear. David felt a lump in his throat. "We're happy too, honey," Emily said softly. They started to eat. The conversation flowed naturally. Lily talked about the Christmas play at school, about her new friend, about her teacher. "I brought my notebooks for you to see," she said to David, running to her room and coming back with a stack. David flipped through each one carefully. He saw the letters that were once crooked and were now firm. He saw the numbers, the simple math problems, the colorful drawings. "You're learning so much," he said, impressed. "The teacher says I'm one of the best in the class," Lily said with pride. "Of course you are," David replied, ruffling her hair. After dinner, they went to the living room. Lily showed them the presents she had gotten from friends. She showed them the ornaments. She told endless stories. Emily and David sat on the sofa watching. They were sitting close, their shoulders almost touching. "She's so different," Emily commented softly. "More confident, happier." "You're different too," David said. Emily looked at him. "Am I?" "You're lighter. You smile more. You seem at peace." Emily thought about that. "I am at peace, and for the first time in years I don't wake up worried. For the first time I can breathe." David smiled. "I'm glad." Lily started to yawn. Emily looked at the clock. "Someone needs to sleep," she said. "But it's Christmas," Lily protested, "and tomorrow is Christmas again." "You can enjoy the whole day if you sleep now," Lily grumbled but obeyed. She hugged David before going to her room. "Are you going to be here tomorrow?" she asked. "I will. I'll bring lunch." "Pizza? If you want pizza, there will be pizza." Lily smiled and went to bed. Emily and David were alone in the living room. The silence was comfortable. The music continued to play softly. "I thought that would be just another empty holiday," David said suddenly, looking at the small tree. "Another Christmas alone, another meaningless night." He looked at Emily. "But it was the beginning of everything." Emily smiled, her eyes shining. "Sometimes life changes on the simplest of days," she said softly. "And you never know when you'll meet the right people at the right time," David nodded. "I don't know what would have become of me if I hadn't walked into that building that night, if I hadn't heard Lily, if I hadn't decided to invite you both." "We don't know what would have become of us without you either," Emily said. "You changed our lives completely. You changed mine too." They sat there for a while longer, just enjoying the moment. They didn't need words. They didn't need promises. They just needed to be there, present, together. When David finally got up to leave, Emily walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said. For everything. You don't have to thank me, David replied. You two are the best thing that ever happened to me. Emily hugged him, a hug of gratitude, of friendship, of something that was growing there, silently. David got back in his car and looked at the house. He saw Emily waving from the door. He saw the light on inside, the small tree shining. And he realized he didn't want to go back to the empty penthouse. He wanted to be where there was life, where there was love, where there was family. But it wasn't time yet. They were building something, slowly, carefully. Not like a conventional family, but as a choice to be present, to care, to be a part of each other's lives. A friendship born from empathy, from a lonely man who saw two people in need of help, from a proud woman who accepted for her daughter, from a little girl who had opened her heart without fear, and that had changed 3 lives forever. David started the car, but he took with him the certainty that he would be back the next day, and the day after that, and on all the days that followed. Because this was his place now, with them, with his chosen family, with his new beginning. And so, with bonds built by kindness and care, they continued on. 3 lives that met in a simple moment and never let go again. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.